Okay, and good morning. Leanne and I are joined by someone that many of you will recognise. This is Richard Denning, runs Medusa Games with his wife Jane, and also UK Games Expo with his second wife Tony. So,
That's right.
good morning, Richard. How are you
Good morning,
today?
Richard.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, I think we're having slight technical issues. Somewhere in the middle, and someone's unplugged some kind of network cable.
A few of those things happening.
Medusa Games. You have got quite a few games out there now, and a lot of fun and interesting games that do some different stuff. Like often tied with your love of history and things as well. So maybe we've talked about it before, but perhaps you could let the people know just how sort of Medusa Games came about.
Yeah, I mean, we started off. It sort of came out of the early days of the Expo. Actually, we were playing games, obviously running games, doing the awards games, and at the time I'd actually been reading a book about the Great Fire of London, and just basically had an idea for a game that would involve the Great Fire, and protecting bits of London and so on. So just started playing around with it, not really particularly expecting for it to go anywhere. In fact, the very first play of it was done on the ferry to Essen, on what we call FerryCon. So when we drive to Essen, the idea is people bring a game in development, and we have a quick go of it on the on the ferry. So the very first version actually was played with the backdrop of a male voice choir singing "Men of Harlech," and I'm not kidding. We started playing the game. My father was with me as Welsh, some people might know, and he this choir was a rugby team on tour, I think, and they were just at the bar on the ferry, and suddenly, literally, they sort of leapt into "Men of Harlech." So my father ran off and abandoned the game and to go and join in with his countrymen. Thanks, Dad. But basically, that was the very first play, and that was in 2008. And then we sort of started from there, really developed the thing. And then I was approached by a publisher who wanted to publish the game, and we brought it out in 2010.
Yeah, it's very good. And recently, you've done a new sort of two-player version, because is it 3 to 4 normally, 3 to 5?
Yeah, I mean, it's strange, isn't it? 10 years ago, when we first brought Great Fire out, I can honestly say that very few people would say, will this play with 2 players? And certainly, I can't remember those days people saying, will this play as a solo game? And what's interesting is how that's now become quite commonplace. People want to play solo, and people want to play 2-player. And so over the years we've thought about it and played around with ideas, but then we decided we'd go ahead and make an official sort of 2-player version that automates the fire between the player turns, and you've got to have something that sort of controls the game between the player turns. So we came up with a mechanism for that.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued by this because I enjoy playing Great Fire of London, but if I get any gaming done at home, it only tends to be a 2-player game. So when I tried to learn it, we played it as a 2-player, and then what we did was try and sort of dummy a third hand. Although that player had a turn, I say, between each of us, trying to sort of scupper the next player before they took their turn to see if actually what they were going to do was going to work out. So now I know that this is coming. It's like I'm really looking forward to this, because even my non-gaming other half learned Great Fire of London with me, and then took it off to his mate's house and played it with a group of 4 people. So it's a good game. Yeah. Even for beginners, it's a good game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly light game, and I sometimes say that if I was designing it now, you might sort of try and add lots more, I don't know, detail to it, or complexity or something. But sometimes actually the good thing about it being a light medium game is it's easy to play with families, which I think can be good. And then families, of course, recognise the Great Fire of London and the theme, so it seems to work quite well. Unfortunately, we'd have hoped to have had the game out at Expo. Had we been there this weekend. But it's available. So we are at the virtually Expo and so on. We'll probably be doing some attempting to do some demos of it online.
Cool. And is normal Great Fire is available on Tabletopia and Board Game Arena, or is coming?
So did you quite catch that?
Oh, is Great Fire of London currently available on Tabletopia and Board Game Arena, or is it?
Yeah, both of the main game and the two-player game are available on our website, and I think we're having some funny games with Amazon at the moment. You sort of have to get to be able to sell toys and games. You have to get some approval for selling toys and games, which they seem to have brought in a new thing, and get so I think it'll be back on sale directly from me, but it's on from various retailers, of course.
Yeah, and playing online, is it available online? Like to play online?
I'm struggling to hear you, Mark, at the moment. I don't know if I'm coming clearly through your end. You're sort of breaking up a little.
Right. No, you're coming through really clear to us. Yeah, because we obviously with the move to online conventions and online gaming, we were looking at things like Board Game Arena and Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. So what about playing Great Fire on those?
No, that was the conversion for Tabletopia was obviously we're playing around with the idea of doing some way of doing online game demos, thinking about the Expo side of things anyway. I just came across the Tabletopia and decided to have a go at doing a conversion for it, and that's actually working pretty well, and we're going to probably get that out into the library on the Tabletopia, hopefully. Don't know how long it takes, the approval process, once you've submitted it, but we're talking to the people running Tabletopia, so hopefully that'll be on the library as a free to play game, including the two-player version on there from fairly soon.
Yeah, very cool.
And Board Game Arena, have you played in that? Is that something that's going to come onto as well?
So what was that?
Board Game Arena.
Board Game Arena, yes. Now, of course, Board Game Arena is a different environment in that the games have to be have an AI, don't have to be programmed. So that requires a conversion to be done. No, I can't program. So what you do there is you submit the thing, and I think the community of sort of there may well be someone in the community that might fancy having a go at doing a conversion.
Yeah, I've seen that. There's a couple of different ways they do it, isn't there? So you can submit, go on a waiting list, or submit for a paid thing and do something different. But yeah, it's a different sort of engine, isn't it? So, but yeah, if we can get it on there with two-player, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, I mean it would be good. And one of the problems we have with Tabletopia actually was that I don't know if you see when you create the games in there, you upload the artwork and that works fine. Then you need to have three-dimensional objects. Now there's a variety of three-dimensional objects that come with the game already with Tabletopia's environment. So your houses and your meeples and your cubes and stuff like that, the standard objects you might call them. But the Great Fire also uses these fire cones, and the train band cones, as we call them, which are the firefighters, which are hollow cones, which to drop over the top of the main cones to show that the fire is being fought. Now, that in a three-dimensional environment is actually quite difficult to do. First of all, you create the things and import them. So, and when I started the process of doing it, I'll just knock up a three-dimensional cone in something like Tinkercad, one of those 3D programs that you can do online, and then you can export the file and print it in the real world, as a 3D printer. It turns out that I only discovered this, that the coordinates that you use in three-dimensional printing is different from the coordinates the computer games use. The X, Y, and Z coordinates are at one of them. So in the real world, X is that way, and what was it? And Y is depth, and Z is up in the air. Apparently on computers it's not that way. The depth is into the screen.
I bet you ended up with strange polygons.
Which means you make things in 3D and they go plop on the side as soon as you import them in Tabletopia, and you're staring at it thinking, just stand up, you blinking cone, won't you? So that took a while, and then eventually people said, you just got to flip the Y on the X-axis. He said, well, why would you design a universe in which you've got two different coordinate systems going on?
Wow.
So there's a few little learning curve things. And then the problem anyway is that the interaction between 3D objects is okay when you're placing a flat object on a flat object, say, like cards. It works very well for cards in Tabletopia, but cones dropping over cones when you're trying to work out, when you're not actually seeing things in 3D. It's only like a simulated 3D, isn't it? And you're thinking, is this lined up right? And you drop it and it sort of falls off. So we decided in the end, in the Tabletopia version, to go for sort of just basically kind of red discs and black discs and things. And that seems to work.
Yeah. It's definitely some fun times on Tabletopia. So some of the other games, obviously, one that is very well known is Nine Worlds.
9 Worlds, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're seeing some.
So 9 Worlds came out.
So we're seeing some
is a sort of area control game, yeah.
Yeah. You go for it.
Yeah, so in 9 Worlds is a sort of Viking-themed Norse mythology area control game. Quite a more an abstract game than Great Fire in a sense, in that it's we kind of came across the idea of these Viking games, which are often fairly abstract, spaces and things, you're moving things around, and tried to bring that out a little bit in it, but then have obviously an actual modern board game going on as well in terms of art and all that kind of thing. So you're basically trying to take control of the 9 worlds with your stones. You've got some number of pieces. There's no dice in it. No actual luck at all in 9 worlds. It's very much about how you use your action points to move the stones to try and get control of the worlds. And then when you get control of the world, you can use the world powers and things. And so that's the sort of game that seems to suit... Actually, it seems to go down quite well in Germany for some reason. They're in Essen, whenever they often come back and say, "Oh, there's an expansion for that." I think the Norse mythology works well for them, Germanic Norse mythology, but also that sort of strategic kind of thinky play where seems to work quite well. And so we did an expansion with that a year or two ago to bring in artifacts of the gods. And we're playtesting in one called Creatures and Monsters, which may be something we might have thought about getting it out in time for Essen this year in another universe, but this time we may well look towards next year for that, and that'll bring in sort of various sort of enemies and things, monsters and creatures from the Norse mythology, like the Kraken and dragons and things like that, and trolls.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be really interesting. That'll be good. I've not played 9 Worlds.
So it's something else you do with your stones, sort of thing. You're moving rather than just worrying about controlling the worlds. You also have to think about, where you going off and fighting the monsters. Because if you leave the fight to everybody else, in theory they'll get all the rewards for that. But if monsters are not defeated, then they come and rampage a bit and they cause harm to the people who have done the least to fight them.
Yes.
So if you're a true Viking or heroic type, you go out there and contribute to the fight, then you're rewarded for that. But if actually you keep you out of the fight, then yes, you might. You use less resources, but equally you might get bitten in the back by the fact you've not contributed to the heroic struggle.
I know this sounds that sounds really good, really interesting. I've not played it, but it's one I've seen around a lot. And I was fortunate enough to be at a gaming day somewhere a couple of years ago, and there was a raffle, and somebody won a blank white box. And when they opened up this blank white box, it was a prototype of 9 Worlds. And everybody was like, "We know that game. You've not seen that game. It's normally more colourful than this." But yeah, we've seen this game. So the guy was made up with this prototype that he had, this playtest prototype of 9 Worlds. So
cool. And then the other couple of games from your catalogue that people might know, Magnificent Flying Machines and Tinker Tailor, which just recently got a revamp and a re-release.
Yeah, so Flying Machines... quite different from 9 Worlds in that there's lots of luck and randomness in that. So that's very much based on these early air races of 1910, 1911, that kind of thing that inspired the movie like The Magnificent Men and the Flying Machines. And there were these real air races where sort of 30 planes would take off, but only about 4 would get all the way around Britain. And there'd be lots of crashes, lots of engine failures, lots of problems along the way, and they do things like they give them rewards for managing to get round with an intact plane, and you've got minus points if bits fell off your plane and you had to replace it. So they'd even stamp like a logo on bits of the plane, and those 5 bits of the plane had to get to the end of the course. And if you didn't do that, then you got penalties. So there was quite a challenge just simply getting airborne and staying airborne.
Where was it?
So, so we tried to bring in that into the game. So it's basically an air race, but with a fair amount of randomness and luck. And people sometimes, and therefore folk that don't like dice games and luck-based games might not be their thing. Although there's quite a bit you can do to mitigate against the luck. There's lots of spare parts and cards that you can pick up and equipment that you get that you can use in various ways, like to do re-rolls of the dice and avoid the damage that you might take, that sort of thing. But it definitely suits people who like a bit of definitely interaction and definitely a certain amount of sort of double dealing. You can do things like loosen the wheel on people's loosen the screws on people's wheels, so when they land they crash or something. So there's a bit of Dick Dastardly and wacky races in there as well. So but equally we try to have a bit of strategy. So they did do rewards for things like picking up cargo and transporting it, picking up passengers and transporting it. So we basically brought that in as ways of getting bonus points as well.
Oh, cool.
Very good. And then
and as you say with Tinker Tailor was we brought that first out, and when we did Great Fire, we had ideas, all sorts of other game ideas, and we were working on them. And then Expo came along in an increasing way, and it became quite difficult to find the time to play test and develop and blah 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 and so on. And we got quite a way with 1 or 2 of the games, one called Great Museum, which was going pretty well, but time just became a factor, and so we got round to 5 years having gone by and not having brought a new game out. And so I had designed Tinker Tailor, and it was working well as a game, but I sort of rather rushed it initially, and I asked a friend to do sort of the initial artwork, and it was sort of quite fun, friendly artwork that I quite like, but not a professional artist in the sense of the sort of one the people we tend to use in the games we've got now. So whilst lots of people like the game, whenever you play it, they quite enjoy the artwork and they enjoy the gameplay. And you sometimes get people come back and buy 5 copies for their friends and things for Christmas. We recognised that it needed a sprucing up in order to make it competitive in the sense of, in the world, things have moved on a lot in terms of what you have to do with your art in terms of games, and you definitely need to have a professional artist. And what happened by chance is that when we brought that was the year actually when Andre, who was the artist for 9 Worlds and for Fly Machines, he happened by the stand at Essen, and trying to sell Tinker Tailor, but we did have the demo of 9 Worlds, but without much art on it, just basic shape of the board. And he sort of wambled by with a sort of portfolio full of dwarven mythology sort of art, and said, well, have a look at this, and I reckon I could make something out of that game, sort of thing. This is 9 Worlds. So that's how he got involved, and then we used him for Fly Machines, and then we asked him to do a new edition of Tinker Tailor, which came out last year, and we're quite pleased with that. So quite happy with the way that's turned out now.
That's very cool. And yeah, we've sort of mentioned Expo a few times. Obviously, should have been happening this weekend, and I would imagine that pretty much everyone that we've had on the chat over the weekend would have been going and having fun times. You've kind of obviously tried to postpone it, and then now you're going on with virtually Expo.
Mark, I'm still finding running about every third word through this way, which is strange if you're getting me clearly. Should I try and drop and try and rejoin, maybe? Just see if I get a better connection?
Have a go, yeah. It's going to just go a bit funny on the screens as Richard tries to rejoin.
Well, we fixed the internet dwarves.
Yeah.
Get them onto it.
Yeah, I think they were having all sorts of issues yesterday. They were trying to launch the UK Games Expo Twitch channel yesterday, and kept talking about someone unplugging cables in the Midlands.
Yeah, people do that at the top of our street. You walk past and you see the green cabinet open and all these wires everywhere, and you know that if you're on the top row, you're on a good connection. If you're on the bottom one, you're not.
Right.
And I think when we complain to Virgin, they just go in and switch us around for a bit, and then wait till somebody else complains, and then switch them around a bit.
Yeah, probably.
All the luck of the draw.
Yeah. Yeah, I just found we were talking about Battlestar Galactica last night, and then I found on my memories this morning on Facebook came up me playing Battlestar Galactica 5 years ago at Expo it was, and
Gosh.
we got interrupted halfway through our game because we were playing somewhere we shouldn't have been playing, and had to try and move the whole board. And there's a picture of Ben trying to gingerly hold the board and move it through in the Hilton.
I was very fortunate to be able to to volunteer, not last year, but the year before at Expo. So while we're thinking positively about it, and the fact that they have created this huge event that is being missed this weekend, not just an event that was going to be successful, but when they set it up, I wonder if they realised what a void it would leave if it wasn't there for everybody. But I got to be a part of the volunteer community, and I was working in the Hilton. And before that, I'd been to Expo 2 years in a row, never been into the Hilton at all. It was all in the main halls for me. But to be part of that community, the sense, you always worry as things get bigger, they can get a lot more impersonal. But it didn't matter whether I was sitting with the team of 6 that were in that room or the whole wider Expo community, and the volunteers are amazing, and the community that they have there. And through this cancellation, the postponement, the new cancellation, the chat groups are vibrant, and people are really excited still. And they're disappointed, but they've got their ideas for next year and what they want to do and how much they're looking forward to 2021 already. And it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But we also got caught gaming we shouldn't have 2 years ago. So that was the first time I'd actually I think I'd met Cubberley. Gaming with Barney and a big group of friends, and we were in the very final end room at is it one of the King Suites or something, and it was about 4 a.m, and there was a security guard on the door, and eventually about 4:30 he wandered into us and he said, you can't game in here, we've been waiting for you to leave for this game to finish. And we'd played so many games. He thought we were just playing one game. We played so many games. And we were, you should have told us. We'd have gone. We didn't want to get in your way. We didn't want to cause any trouble. We'd have gone already. So yeah, that was a really good night. But yeah, it's a great event, and I'm sure when it's back, it'll be bigger and better, and everybody will be so excited to get back out there again and see all the traders and small stores that come together, as well as the publishers, as well as the demos. Yeah, it'll be amazing.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and the guys. So when I first went, I think it was 2014, potentially was my first year. Maybe 2013? I can't remember. About then. 2013, 2014. And it was all in the Hilton. There was no NEC.
Okay.
And I know it goes way back before then as well, to Clarendon Suites or something, I think they called it. Yeah, it's just amazing. It's a great event, and we came back from one of them, and that's what inspired us to start Aircon, and then the guys have just been so helpful. Richard and Tony and loads of other people from the UK Games Expo team have just been, you kind of expect people to be like, nah, we don't really want to help you, but they're just like, they've just been so like, a load of the stuff that we use at Aircon is borrowed from them, because they're just like, well, the rest of the year it's just sitting in warehouses, so we may as well sort of share it out and support each other. They're very much of the mindset of trying to increase the exposure for the whole hobby and for everyone in it, and they're kind of
well, it takes us back to what Dave was saying in his interview, wasn't it? He, as a store owner, he could go, yeah, I'm not going to help you because you're a competitor, but he knows that the more people in the hobby, the better it is for everybody, and this is a love of something that they want to share, and it's the right way to go about things, because that's how you grow something. You don't grow something yourself by stifling it everywhere else. It's not how it works.
Exactly. So it looks like Richard's having some issues. I wonder if let's fill in for him. What else could he have talked about? Is he going to talk about his books? Because he's an author as well, so he can talk about his books. Well, we should mention Virtually Expo happening in August. You can go and sign up for that now and sort of see all the stuff they've got going on the UK Games Expo website, which is just ukgamesexpo.co.uk. They're looking for volunteers. They're looking for people to run games. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and it does look like it's going to be a really fantastic event. So make sure you go and check that out. What I might do is just end this here, and then we'll see if Richard's maybe available this afternoon, and add in a little sneaky extra chat where we'll just talk about Games Expo.
We'll just squeeze back in. Yeah, that could work.
Yeah. Awesome. So thanks, Leanne, and thank you to Richard. Sorry about the technical issues here, but we'll try and get him back on later to have another chat.
We will. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for the moment and being up early on a Sunday, and we'll see you after your roast dinner.
Yeah, we're back later with some more interviews this afternoon, and then we're going to... It's normally on a Sunday, it's a bit of a wind down for a convention, because we're virtual, because we have no packing away to do. We don't have any, like, hundreds of tables to try and get away before...
I bet you're not missing that, are you?
Definitely
you're not
not.
missing tablecloths and chairs.
No. So we're still going to have another event at 9 o'clock tonight, where we're going to just have a little review of the weekend, a roundup chat with all of the admin team again, and please do come along, ask questions in the comments. And
okay. What time do you want people back here, Mark? When's your next interview?
2 o'clock.
Oh, right, okay. So if everybody's got a gap and there's no more this morning, don't forget that if you head over to the Discord servers, there are games being organised. If you check those out, Paul Grogan may or may not have space left in some of the Codenames games, but the interface on the website is really easy to use, so you can try it yourself if he's busy. But I know that those games are still going on, and they're going to be transmitted on here as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, go and get your final shops in, people.
Yeah.
Use those discount codes.
Go for it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you all in a little while.
Bye.
Bye.